So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel. And I'm super excited to be joined by an acting icon in the form of Harriet Thorpe. Harriet, how are you? Welcome along.
Thank you, darling. I'm very well.
Now, I'll just let people into a little secret because we actually bumped into each other completely by accident at the Wycombe Swan in High Wycombe for the press night of the Panto there of Aladdin. How did you find it? It was a fantastic evening, wasn't it?
It was absolutely sensational. I mean, most fun, just absolutely fabulous, if I can use that phrase. Cast with a Lavoie, of course, who's a great mate and such a huge talent, not just comedically, vocally, on every level. He's brilliant. Lavoie, is brilliant.
It was, I say, an absolutely fantastic show. I mean, I feel a bit guilty because I hadn't been to Panto for a few years. I think obviously with COVID and everything that happened, we kind
Yeah,
of went away from the theatre. But
yeah.
to be back in the theatre to watch Panto, which is amazing. And I mean, obviously it's a great introduction for youngsters. I've said this time and time again. But I mean, for yourself, you must love just getting into the theatres and just seeing a great show, whether it be Panto or whatever.
I adore it. I think Panto was the first theatre I saw. And I remember as a little girl, I think my parents took us to the Palladium, and I remember seeing Danny LaRue. And I thought she was the most glamorous woman I'd ever seen. I think I must have been about six, but that's how I saw her. He was amazing.
And I mean, how was your Christmas and your New Year? How did you spend it? Was it sort of a nice time for you?
Oh, absolutely. It was wonderful. It was spent with family and friends. And what else do you want, really? It's enough, really. That is gifts enough.
Exactly. Nothing more you could possibly want.
No.
Now for you, let's go back to where it all began for you. I mean, where did the love of acting come from? Can you remember, sort of pinpoint it to a time or was it, how did it happen for you?
I absolutely can. And it was interesting because it's a journey. And one of the earliest memories I have is trying to make my sister laugh when I was about three and she was a few months old. And that feeling when I could get her to laugh was so wonderful and such excitement. And that was my earliest memory. I had wanted to be a dancer and I started doing ballet and I got into the Royal Ballet School when I was 15. And I went there, and then my tits grew, and you can't get them into a tutu, darling. It's not going to happen. So I also got into Rambert School at the same time as I got into Royal. So then I went to Rambert for a couple of years, and then I thought this isn't for me really. And then I started working at a restaurant called Joe Allen, which is one of the biggest theatrical go-to restaurants that was first in New York and then came to London. And at that point in the 1970s, that was everyone went there. Every theatrical film star, whoever in show business on any level, would go to Joe's. And I served Tennessee Williams chili. Elaine Stritch, who was living at the Savoy, came in every day. All the movie stars were there. Diana Ross came in, and I remember very vividly her putting on her. We had a wonderful jukebox, and she put on her own record and danced to it. It was heaven. And so, we that was the most amazing gift. And I think the arts have been part of our lives since time began. Whether you were doing a cave painting or a Greek tragedy, we've needed the arts to reflect our world, always. And so it doesn't matter whether you write it, sing it, dance it, act it, it's about telling stories. And I think that is the thing that guides us. And so the step from dancing to acting was just a segue for something that we all do anyway, which is tell stories, and it just manifests in a different way. And I got into Central School of Speech and Drama. And I think that was probably 1979. I went there and was lucky enough to be in the same year, although we were on different courses, as Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French. And we were mates then. And I've been honoured and lucky enough to work with them and ever since, really. Which is, and they're, Jen's one of my dearest friends. And I only heard on an interview that she gave, that she based Patsy on me, which I had no idea about. So I don't know where that comes from, obviously. And it was amazing. So again, it was 1979 to 1981 when we finished. That was the time. They were beyond brilliant. There were lots of actors doing lots of end of term cabaret shows, but they wiped the floor with all of us. They were beyond brilliant. And it was just the most amazing, fun time. And then went straight into rep theatre, and which does exist a little bit now, but that's where you learn to make all your mistakes, and you only ever learn by going wrong. You never, you know, when you go right, you think this is my talent, this is my natural thing, how clever. I'm also dyslexic, so when I was a kid at school, I was told I was stupid and lazy. And actually, I was just dyslexic, which I didn't realise, and it wasn't recognised in the sort of 60s, 70s. But my sister and I were so lucky because my dad had been an actor years before he left home in the middle of the war to go and join Italia Conti on tour when he was about 14, 15. And then he went into Stars in Battle Dress, then he went to RADA, then he became an actor, then he was acting, and then he met my mum, and then he decided he better get a proper job, because again, that's what people thought, acting was not a proper job. My mother was a writer, and she was a novelist, and she wrote a really important book in the 1960s about working class biker boys who fell in love, which was the Brokeback Mountain of its day. And that was also a time when it was still illegal to be gay. So she had a voice for people who didn't have one, and it was an amazing experience. And I remember she then wrote the movie. Her novel was turned into a movie, and she wrote that. And I remember being on set, and when I was about 5, I think. And again, you know, I grew up in a world where everything is normal. You don't judge people. They're allowed to be who they are. It doesn't matter who you love, where you come from, you know, what religion you are, we're all together. And that's what I grew up with. And then when I was 8 and my sister was 5, we moved to LA, which of course is going through the most difficult time right now with all the fires and things. But I grew up with my sister playing on the back lots. My sister's also an actress, Matilda Thorpe, and we also have a company that called Doctor Theatre, which works to help people doing presentational skills. And we work internationally with lots of different people on all sorts of levels, so that you learn not to be afraid to honour the person that you are and reclaim that voice that you have. Because often people are scared, you know, they think, well, I've got a table, I'm sitting at a table, I can talk, but if I have to stand up, I can't. You think, the table has no magic powers, darling. It's just a table, it's a bit of wood. But, you know, we have all sorts of things that we do to keep safe. So again, I was lucky enough to go to drama school, then start working, and early on worked with a wonderful director called John Doyle. And again, I've done musicals. I'm an actress who sings. As I say often, I have a voice that should clean ovens. But, you know, I just, you know, I only play crazy ladies, thank God. I've never been an ingenue. I've always been either, now it's a sad old tart, or I'm a queen killing her king, if it's Shakespeare. But, you know, it's a mixture of, and I'm honoured and lucky enough now to be running the Vic, which are huge shoes to step into from those iconic women and matriarchs. And it's the most glorious job I have, you know, could ever have imagined, because it's a character that never stops changing. You know, I've been lucky enough to do, you know, all sorts of wonderful shows like British Empire, absolutely fabulous, a whole load of theatre musicals. But this show, you are taken on an emotional journey that you can't even imagine or fathom that you might do, because of the brilliant writing. And the teamwork there is just phenomenal. And the support and the collaborative nature of it right now is amazing. So again, it's been an interesting journey, because it isn't how I got into it. It's in our DNA, and we don't have a choice. And so you just keep going and doing the thing. And I've always said yes to everything. I think work breeds work. I love working. and you never know who you're going to work with or what you're going to meet, and nothing, I think sometimes people think, oh, I can't do that, or, and I speak like this because at drama school, everyone was taught to speak RP, which is received pronunciation. And actually, my East End origins, I think 3 generations ago, my great-great-grandmother was a washerwoman down the East End, darling. So again, I never really used my own voice for anything. It's always a character that I'm creating that I find fun to immerse myself in and evolve. But I think, again, we're so lucky to have the opportunity to do all these different things, like musicals, like, to be doing Mamma Mia and Wicked and Les Mis. I mean, they're just the most amazing shows to be part of. And again, fantastic characters to play. So I'm just very, very lucky. And I love working, and I love the culture that I'm in. And I love telling stories. And EastEnders right now, whether you are 9 or 90, there is a story for you. And that's what matters. And people often dismiss the arts, and often dismiss soap.
Now,
Actually,
I was going to say, we will, of course, talk about EastEnders because it is fantastic at the moment. It is really top form. But before that, I just wanted to kind of ask for you, do you remember, the first time you stood on a stage in front of an audience? Do you remember that feeling? How did that feel for you?
My first performance was one of Gabriel's Angels at primary school. And I was very excited because I had lipstick on. And I remember pointing to my mother and my lipstick in the show. That was my first experience of theatre. And then from then on, the arts is part of performing. So you kind of never stop. And I think, yes, there's every time I step on a stage and I look out into that auditorium, there is a moment of such thrill. And to think, at the National Theatre, they've got so many different theatres in that one building, and to have played them all and to stand there and honour the people who've been there before. I remember we did a wonderful play at the National called Great Britain, which was written by Richard Bean and directed by Nick Heitner, and we transferred to the West End. And again, it was the most amazing things because the wooden stairs sometimes have dents in them. And, you think there was the Haymarket Theatre, not dents, but just where they'd been worn away. And every time I go up them, I think, who had trodden those stairs before me? And how lucky I am. Because there's something so magical about those old theatres as well.
And as well, to have had so many role models as you were growing up, to look up to, that must have been great to know that you were in a safe space, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I think it was the anticipation of what's next. And that's what I learned. And we would go on, my mum and dad and would go on women's lib marches and all those things. So it wasn't that thing of a safe space. That was the norm. And it was only when I went to school as a little girl did I realise there was racism, homophobia, sort of hatred of, if it wasn't your religion, you were hated. It was crazy. And what matters is the culmination and the coming together of people and lives. That's what matters. And that's what keeps us moving forward, not that somebody else is better and somebody else is lesser.
Now we have to, of course, talk about Absolutely Fabulous and what an amazing series it was. For you, when that first came to you, how did you become involved with that? Did you know how popular it would go on to be?
You never know how popular something will or will not be. It would be great if we could have that equation, but it doesn't exist. But Jen and I were on holiday together with both our families, and we were staying together. And I remember her talking to me about a new series she had planned, and she has a mother and daughter, and it's all these different things. And I said, well, I could play your daughter. And she said, not with those tears. And I was like, yeah, I'll strap them down, it's fine. And she was like, no, quite rightly. So she's an extraordinary, inspirational friend. And again, her imagination and sort of vision for things of the moment to represent that. Her writing is extraordinary, and she's so clever and so brilliantly funny to have a voice for all those different women in the show. And everyone had the best time. It was such fabulous fun, truly was. You know, it was just the most, a culmination of such evolving. And again, as you move forward, you begin to write for your characters. So because I decided to give my character Fleur, Lily Wigard, she didn't pronounce the vowels very well. She began to write things for her to say with lots of vowels in. So, you know, it's brilliant. She's extraordinary.
And it's just fantastic how the show has just continued with popularity. People still watch it to this day. It really is kind of part of British comedy history, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And to write for women at that time, again, all the stuff that French and Saunders did, it was a whole new era of comedy, you know, that changed everything for women and gave them the ability to have a voice and to take the piss out of themselves and to reflect our world, you know, and the things that matter and the things that don't matter. It's, you know, absolutely extraordinary.
And obviously, more recently they've done, they did the Ab Fab movie.
Yeah.
Would you love to do more if they did more in the future?
Oh, that's a given. But, you know, I mean, Jen says that it's done, you know, she's moved on, which I totally respect. But yes, of course, at the drop of a hat.
Now, one of the other projects that you took part in during lockdown was, of course, the Wonderbirds, which was a great series. And I mean, it came at a time when people really needed that kind of connection because we were all locked down. So how did that come about, that whole project for you?
It was so interesting. It was all of us talking, and it was myself, Sherry Hewson, Debbie Arnold, and Dee Anderson, and I came up with the name Wonderbirds because of obviously Dee's association with Thunderbirds, and again, it was just something because it was about not being shut away, and it was talking about daily stuff, the what was going on. We had amazing guests on, you know. And it was a fantastic thing to have evolved at that time, and it mattered very much. And also, people weren't really doing Zoom things in the way that they are now. You know, there were lots of programs, but people didn't Zoom shows and have people on like we're talking now. You know, in that way, they just didn't. It was extraordinary, and I think then, and as lockdown evolved, that became the norm.
And I mean, so the great thing, you say you had some, fantastic guests on it, and it was just nice, and people felt welcomed. And I mean, when you can produce something like that is very welcoming and kind of, anyone's welcome round, you must feel so proud that you were able to be a part of that during an important, like we said, an important time when people needed it.
Yeah, the four of us did it I think it's still continuing, but the four of us did it for a couple of years. You know, it was really amazing. And, you know, I think it was not being alone. And again, it was laughing and joking about things that, you know, you need to laugh and joke about. You know, those things matter. And even when times are tough. And I think that was what was also so important at that time. It really mattered. Now we don't think twice about leaping on FaceTiming and having people have big meetings in business on Zoom. It didn't start like that, you know.
And it's crazy to think that was, about 5 years ago now, and in a way, and I hate to say this, but although it was such a terrible situation, I do think in aspects of it did help us improve. I mean, people might disagree with me, but I do think in certain ways people connected more and still are connecting, better, I suppose.
I think you're absolutely right. It's about that communication, and it really does matter. And it did make a huge difference because people who didn't think they could do that learnt to. And then you pick up your phone and talk on your phone to wherever somebody else is in the world and FaceTime them. You know, it's extraordinary. The idea, you know, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again, yes, it was the most terrible, devastating time, but the things that came out of it were really interesting and positive.
Now we have to talk about EastEnders because
Yes.
obviously it's a huge part of your life at the moment. And I mean,
Yeah.
what a roller coaster you've had so far. I mean, how has it been joining one of the biggest shows on the television? How's that been for you?
It's been absolutely wonderful and transformed everything. Like I said, as a character, I've never had to play somebody that keeps evolving. Like real life, stories come back, things are revealed, and also things from left field happen. You know that really matter and make a difference. And you know the struggles you have in relationships, people have in relationships, the identification people get. I have so many people stop me and say, "Oh, I'm so moved by when this happens or when that happens." You know, and are so grateful to EastEnders for reflecting their world. And like I said, 9 or 90, you've got a story there. And that's why, you know, again, it's an ongoing drama. And it's fantastic. Also, I love the fact that my character Elaine can be fearless and funny and sometimes fragile, you
I
know,
mean,
but she's tough.
I mean, when you joined the show, how much did you know about the character? Because I mean, obviously, she was played previously by I think it was Maria Friedman. I think was
Maria,
the
yeah.
yeah. So
And
how much did you know about the character?
well, it was different in the sense that that was her, you know, absolutely she was wonderful, but it wasn't a full-time character. So this has evolved into a different kind of concept now. And it again, it's about bringing, you know, it's interesting as well because I think there's lots of people have come back as different people. Lots of people have come in as different people in that show. It's part of the culture that you can rebirth them, as it were, into your way, and it's manifested differently by the writers, by the producers, by the directors, and by us who rejoin as someone else, you know. And then you bring other little nuances to it, and one respects everything that's gone before, but we're always in the present,
And I mean,
not.
I must say, people have loved you joining the show and your incarnation of the character. I mean, do you get that love from the audience? Do you know sort of kind of what people think?
Um, yes, I think I have had initially people never like anything to change or things that are new, but um, I now have a lot more positive support, and again because she's been allowed to develop, and again all the things that she does, little things that are fun to play in the show, like people get her name wrong. And she, you know, they say Elaine, she goes, it's Elaine. You know, it's those things that are funny. They're just little things. If you know, you know. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You know, it's just character layers that are fun.
And one of the things we must talk about is, I mean, the fantastic Kelly Bright. I mean, she is fantastic. And
Phenomenal.
how have you found working with her? Because you appear to get on really well. The chemistry is fantastic. So what is it like?
We have an absolute blast. She is a tour de force and has such amazing vision. She's such an amazing actress. She's a joy to work with. And she's fantastic. She's absolutely fantastic and supportive and fun. You know, we just have a great time, which is what it should be about. You know, it's people, I think there are moments in everybody's careers, no matter what you do, you find that people who are anxious and frightened behave differently. That isn't the way it is at EastEnders. Everybody's there for each other right now, and it's collaborative and supportive.
I mean, one of the episodes we have to talk about, which really was powerful and moving, was the episode where we saw what would happen if Linda died.
Yeah,
Do you know what? So I was one of those people that generally watched it and thought, oh my word, have they actually killed her off? That was
exactly.
such an amazing episode. I mean, what was it like filming that?
It was so moving and again so important because you know it's a huge plot twist as well. Therefore, to honour the reality of that, the truth of that mattered. And also, you know, people don't choose to become addicts. It's not something you think, oh, I'll just do this. It happens. It's an illness. You know, it affects many, many people in many different ways. And supporting people and trying to fix it as my character tried to do, or pretend it was okay and just cover up all the cracks, there was a moment when she says, no, this is not okay. You need to make your choice now. And that's the toughest thing to do, is to stop trying to fix somebody who's broken, because the only person who can fix that break is themselves. And that was the beautiful, extraordinary journey that, you know, Linda went on, was that she drank herself to almost dying and then realizing she had a choice. And knowing you have a choice is freedom. And that's the thing that the mother tries to say, you make your choice. And that she finds she has an answer, which is to choose something different. And again, that sharing that, the identification people had on every side was so extraordinary and important. That's why the stories that are told there, oh, it's so much drama. No, things happen in life. This is real life too. You know, mistakes are made, but there's no shame in being an addict. It's something that happens. It isn't it isn't something that, it's your fault. But knowing you can choose a different way is everything.
And it must have been fantastic as well to have Danny Hatchett and Maddie Hill to obviously pop back, because I don't think you've worked with them before, have you?
No, I hadn't. It was fantastic. They were an absolute joy.
Now, we obviously must mention the fact that, joining as part of the Knight family as well, Colin Salmon, I mean, I've never spoken to him, but he just seems like an absolute legend. I mean, what is it like to work with this new family?
It's fantastic. He is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And again, creative, supportive. The girls, Molly and Frankie are absolutely sensational. And such fun. We all joined together. So it was, I was slightly ahead of them, I think, by about 3 weeks. But it was wonderful, and is wonderful.
And how much did you know when you were, sort of coming into the show about the whole Cindy twist and that? How much did you get told?
You get told little bits and pieces. And then, we have our scripts. We are running 2 or 3 months, 2.5 months ahead. So you do kind of know what's coming. But obviously there are certain things that you don't know. But what's wonderful in real life is Michelle and I are great pals, and we live near each other. So we're frenemies.
It's funny, I had the pleasure of interviewing Michelle back during lockdown, funnily enough, very early on in the series, and she is just fantastic, an absolute delight. She's obviously nothing like her character, which is great. But I mean, you're getting to work with her just must be fantastic.
It's such a joy, and she's iconic. And again, all her, her storylines are extraordinary, and she is brilliant in delivering everything. And Christmas was mind-blowing and wonderful. And we have such a good time.
I mean, Christmas, we'll talk about it. Obviously, we can't say too much, but an amazing storyline to be a part of, a whodunit. EastEnders does them so well. I mean, what is it like being a part of this? And obviously, we know this will lead up to the 40th anniversary in February. What's it been like?
It's an honor. It's a roller coaster of delight, because, again, the 40th is going to be amazing. It's a live show again. The build up to that is absolutely fantastic. And again, as I said before, the writing is so extraordinary, the story planning, the multi-layered, multifaceted storylines of all these different people coming together endlessly in and out of each other's lives. How they do it is beyond me. They are absolutely, if I say the word absolutely one more time, you'll have to stop. They are categorically sensational, because the brilliance of their minds to interweave and play with all these different dramas which go on. And now, of course, we have the thrill of audience participation.
That's very
exciting. Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't think that's ever been done before. And when I heard about that, it was like, wow, why has this never happened?
It's inspirational. I mean, and I bet anything else, other people will do the same, because it engages the audience in a completely mesmeric way of having control over something, which they will have. I mean, amazing. It's
Um,
so clever.
I mean, obviously, you may not be able to answer this, but who do you think would, attacked Cindy? Who have you kind of got a sort of a thought of who you think is responsible?
I'm going to pretend my face is set and the video's stopped. I'm not going to tell you anything, darling.
Now, one of the questions I love to ask my guests when I get them on is
Yeah.
about if you were to meet your character in real life, would you be friends? Do you think you would get on in real life?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Yeah, fuck yeah. She's fearless. She doesn't take any nonsense. You know, of course, she'd be a laugh. And actually, you want those strong women in your life. And I'm lucky I have a lot of friends who we share so much together that keep supporting us, you know, each other.
Now, I mean, one of the other things, I mean, before we kind of sort of slowly wrap it up, I just wanted to say, is there a dream storyline? Is there something that you would love to do on EastEnders going forward that you maybe haven't had the chance to do? What would you love to see happen with your character going forward?
I think it's just endlessly important to keep telling stories of truth, of mistakes we make in life, particularly set in certain eras that viewed women and the rights of women differently. And so I think that there's so much potential for so many different stories. And the world we have today, whereas we get older, I'm 67, we get dismissed because we're this age. And I know people say, oh, age is just a number, but I don't feel a number. I am who I am. And we try to hold on to that person for as long as we possibly can. You know, I think the writers are extraordinary and I trust them. And they have proved that they know all this already. And there are, I'm sure, new thoughts and roller coaster rides we're all going to go on.
I mean, the other one I must just quickly mention, loved the scenes between yourself and Angela Winter, obviously who plays
Oh, yeah.
Yolandi. Though that
Yeah.
was just so heart-wrenching. And I mean, you both, round of applause, all the awards go to you. That was just fantastic.
Well, again, it's being frightened to say something out loud when you're from a time when people were shamed because of it. And it's wonderful to have that voice now so other people are not alone.
Now, I just want to say before we go, thank you so much for joining me. But is there any messages you would like to give to the patients listening in hospital or to our amazing NHS staff? What would you like to say to them?
Well, to the NHS staff, it's thank you for being there all the time when times are really, really, really hard and it seems very bleak. But they are the backbone of our world that keep us going. And it's just a big thank you to them because they are extraordinary. And to the patients, the thing that I say to myself all the time is I have to be in the moment and don't look back because you're not going that way. Just keep looking forward.
Now, I just have to say thank you so much for giving up your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. You are welcome back anytime. And yeah, thank you.
Absolute pleasure being here. And thank you so much for asking me. I'm honoured.